The website Mike released a powerful video that addresses race relations in the U.S. More than 24 celebrities are seen describing actions by black people before they were killed by police in recent years.
Failing to signal a lane change.
Riding in your girlfriend's car with a child in the back.
Running to the bathroom in your own apartment.
Selling cigarettes outside of a corner store.
Riding a commuter train.
The video is called 23 Ways You Could Be Killed If You Are Black in America. Alicia Keys says at the end, the time for change is now.
After those police-involved shooting deaths of 2 black men in the ambush of 5 Dallas police officers, some communities turned to religion for healing. Bishop T.D. Jakes held a special town hall meeting at his Dallas megachurch on Sunday. Police, local leaders, and family members of those killed by officers all took part. The aunt of Alton Sterling, who was shot in Baton Rouge, described watching the video of his death.
Alton is my nephew, but I call him my son because I raised him. When I saw the first tape, it hurt me and it pained me, but I was okay because I thought, I'm gonna say my child nephew didn't suffer. But when I saw the second tape, he suffered. He suffered.
Bishop T.D. Jakes leads the Potter's House Church. We welcome you back to the table.
Thank you.
It's really good to have you here at this particular time, because it was a week ago today, Bishop Jakes, that this shooting took place. And so many people are still mourning and still in pain, yet we must move forward. How in the world do we do that?
Well, you know, it's going to be difficult for the families. It's certainly going to be a pain that stays with them the rest of their lives in one form or another. For the country, I think the pain is indicative of the fact that we have unresolved issues that we have to deal with in order to go forward. I'm happy to say that Dallas as a whole is not really in the quagmire of police brutality to the degree that we see in other places. Chief Brown has done an amazing job. Mayor Rawlings has as well. It's just the irony of one Lone Ranger shooter who brought it to rest in our laps, and we're trying to heal and recover from it.
The president, everyone says we must listen to each other, we must talk to each other.
I think that we must talk to each other, but the talking is very uncomfortable, and I think we have a propensity to think, let's just be quiet and let's not say anything about it, maybe it will go away. But we have seen this type of philosophy work in child abuse and molestation in the Catholic Church. You can't just shush things up and make them go away. You have to get the infection out there. There's a certain degree of infection in these various communities. And when you see this kind of swelling and uprising, you have to respond to it in a way that gives care and attention and allow the people who are victimized to speak and not become professional at telling us what's wrong with us.
I thought it was interesting, too, to hear Chief Brown say at one point, and it made headlines, you know, we're asking cops to do too much. We're asking them to solve all these societal and community problems, whether it's too many dogs, he said, in Dallas, whether it's too many single mothers leading households. Cops can't do all of those things. We have to ask ourselves what we're doing.
It's way too much. And then we have certain communities that are disproportionately dealing with issues like that because of poverty and joblessness. And those police officers who go in there are underpaid. One of the problems that came out in the Dallas issues is that they don't have a budget for tasers. So there's nothing in between the billy club and the gun for the police officer to go to. Those types of things, we have to listen at the police officers, and we have to respond to them in such a way that they can do their jobs more effectively.
I think also we have to make a strong understanding that there is, on the other hand, one hand, overt racism, and then there is implicit bias.
Right.
And the implicit bias is what we have not been dealing with.
And that is so true. I think sometimes when you call it racism and you're not walking around with a sheet over your head and burning crosses, you feel exempt from that. But we do have biases that are built into the fabric of the human experience, and we have to be intentional about compensating for those biases. One of the ways we can compensate by them is making sure that the police department is a reflection demographically of the community that it serves, so that that sensitivity goes beyond a training that you had 5 years ago to a day-to-day experience that goes on in the patrol car.
Chief Brown made that point. You know, Black Lives Matter has been coming under fire. It's been called anti-racist, anti-cop, anti-white. What do you say about that? And then tying the shooter to the Black Lives Matter movement.
You know, whenever a person makes a statement, I would have preferred that they call it Black Lives Matter too. But whenever a person makes a statement, you need to go back to that person and see what the intention is. And they've been quite clear that the intention is not to say that white lives don't matter, because white lives in this country have always mattered, but it is to bring attention to the swelling and the problem in black communities that they feel like black lives are not being treated as if they mattered. And so I think if we would just accept that rather than argue about the semantics, while the blood of our police officers, as well as the blood of our sons, runs down the streets, we're worried about terminologies. I think it's irrelevant what the term is. Let's go on to the issue behind the term and let's fix it.
And how do we start today? I mean, it's conversations in the churches and conversations in the communities, or do we need a sense of scorecard, urgency? Let's make sure that this is not killings that are in vain.
I think conversations will bring attention to it, but conversations will not fix it. Until we admit to the fact that we have a criminal justice system, not just on the sidewalk, but the entire system is totally dysfunctional. Both Republicans and Democrats are saying that it is dysfunctional, but we're not doing anything about it. We have to fix that thing, because not only does it create injustice on the sidewalk, but we also create communities of people who were once incarcerated who can't get a job, who can't get a place to stay. And how can you expect people to survive if they don't have the very basics and fundamentals of life itself?
That's something we know how to fix.
We know how to fix it, and we can fix it. And we've been derelict of our responsibilities, and we're taking these tax dollars from people and they're not getting representation. It's simply not fair.
Does this time feel different to you? This particular time, what is happening with the shootings that happened in Minnesota and Baton Rouge and now in Dallas, do you feel that people are paying attention differently than they have before?
I think that they are. I think that we've reached a cusp that something has to happen. And it's very troubling, because many of the countries that we're going overseas to fix are riddled with the same problems that we have in our own country. We're not dealing with countries fighting countries. We're not able to go to the United Nations and fix it. We're dealing with gang wars all over the world. And now we're seeing gangs rise up in our own country, and we have to be judicious to fix our own laundry before we start washing our neighbors.
A lot of people are comparing that shooter to Dylan Roof. Do you see a comparison?
Well, you know, it's interesting, because when the African-American young man did what he did, people tied it back to our community and they tied it back to Black Lives Matter. But when Dylan Roof did what he did, the white community did not have to bear the brunt of one lone individual. And we looked at him, we looked at his background, we looked at his past, but we did not tie him in a bag as if he represented the plight of an entire group of people. I think that's unfair. 40 million African Americans in this country. That one incident does not reflect the opinion of all of those people.
Exactly. Pastor T.D. Jakes, so good to have you here. Thank you. Thank you for being here.